The galaxy had known humans for 300 years. In that time, every species had learned one simple truth: humans were the kindest beings in the universe. This confused everyone. Earth was a nightmare. The Galactic Assembly classified planets by danger level, from Category 1 to Category 15. Most species came from Category 2 or Category 3 worlds, gentle places with calm weather, soft gravity, and peaceful ecosystems. Earth was Category 12. The planet had crushing gravity that made bones dense and muscles thick. The atmosphere contained oxygen, a gas so dangerous that most species considered it poison. The weather changed without warning. Hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions happened regularly. The planet was covered with predators that had evolved for millions of years to become perfect killing machines. And yet the beings who survived this were nice. Captain stood on the bridge of her ship, the Healing Dawn, watching her crew prepare medical supplies for their next mission. A plague had struck a colony 3 systems away. The species was fragile and gentle, unable to fight the sickness alone. Had volunteered immediately. She always did. She was 42 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes. Her hands had saved thousands of lives across dozens of worlds. She had never held a weapon in her 20 years of service. The Healing Dawn carried no guns. It had no missiles, no shields designed for combat. It was a hospital that flew through space, painted white with a green symbol that meant help in every known language. Lieutenant walked onto the bridge carrying a heavy box of medical equipment. He was tall and broad, with the kind of muscles that made other species nervous. On his ancestors had hunted animals 10 times their size. His body was designed for violence. He used it to carry boxes. "The supplies are ready," he said, setting the box down gently. "I made sure to include the soft blankets they like. Their shells get cold easily." Smiled, "Thank you. You always remember the small things." "Someone has to." He stretched his arms. "My back hurts. I think I lifted too many crates yesterday." Any other species would have been hospitalized by the weight lifted daily. He considered it mild exercise. This was humanity in the galaxy, creatures built for war who chose peace, bodies designed to survive hell who spent their time healing others. Far across space, ambassadors sat in the great chamber of the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 800 species filled the circular room, discussing trade routes and border disputes. Was patient. He had been humanity's voice in this chamber for 60 years. In that time he had never shouted, never threatened, never demanded. He asked, he suggested, he compromised. The other species loved him. A delegate, a tall creature covered in blue scales, approached during a break in the session. "Ambassador," they said, "I wanted to thank your people again. The human engineers who rebuilt our southern continent. They refused payment. They said helping was enough." Nodded warmly. "We are happy to assist. Your people suffered greatly in the earthquake. It was the least we could do." "But why?" They seemed genuinely puzzled. "We have nothing to offer you. We are a poor species. We cannot repay this debt." "There is no debt," said simply. "You needed help, we could provide it, that is all." They walked away, still confused. This conversation happened often. Other species could not understand humans. In the evolutionary history of the galaxy, kindness was rare. Most species developed selfishness to survive. They hoarded resources, protected only their own kind, and viewed strangers with suspicion. Humans had faced the worst conditions imaginable. They should have been the most selfish, most violent, most dangerous species in existence. Instead, they cried when they saw others suffer. They adopted orphaned children from alien species. They spent their wealth helping strangers. They apologized when they accidentally stepped on insects. The who were small and easily frightened had given humans a special name: the Weeping Warriors. beings who would sob over a dying flower but could survive injuries that would kill any other creature instantly. On the colony world of Aster 7, Young helped her mother prepare food for the harvest festival. She was 16, with bright eyes and a quick laugh. Her younger brother Minyu, just 12 years old, ran through the fields chasing flying creatures that glowed in the evening light. Aster 7 was a farming colony. 5,000 humans lived there, growing food that would feed dozens of worlds. They had no military. They had one security officer, Sergeant, who spent most of her time helping farmers fix broken equipment. The colony had no defenses because it needed none. Everyone knew humans were peaceful. Everyone knew attacking them would bring no glory and no profit. They were wrong about the profit. In the dark spaces between stars, other eyes were watching. The hegemony of had observed humanity for decades. They saw the kindness, the mercy, the gentle hearts. They saw weakness. Warlord reviewed the reports on his command ship. Humans had dismantled most of their military. There had minimal orbital defenses. Their colonies were unprotected. They are soft, growled to his advisors. 300 years of peace have made them forget what they are. They will break easily. His species had conquered 42 others. They knew how to identify prey. The humans decided were prey. He began planning his attack. Far away, Captain watched the stars pass her window. She thought about the sick waiting for her help. She thought about the children she would heal, the families she would reunite. She did not know that darkness was coming. She did not know that soon the galaxy would learn why create survivors. She did not know that kindness for humans was always a choice. And choices could be changed. The attack came without warning. Was dancing at the harvest festival when the sky turned red. She looked up and saw fire falling from the clouds. Not rain, not meteors, ships. Dozens of massive ships descending on her peaceful world. The music stopped. The laughter died. For one frozen moment, 5,000 humans stared at the sky in disbelief. Then the screaming began. Soldiers poured from landing craft. They were terrifying creatures, tall and covered in dark armor that grew from their own bodies. Their eyes glowed yellow in the smoke. Their claws were designed for killing. Warlord watched from his command ship in orbit. He smiled as his soldiers moved through the colony. The humans were running, crying, hiding, just as he predicted. Collect the young ones and the old ones, he ordered. They are the easiest to transport. Kill anyone who resists. But something strange happened. The humans did not resist. Sergeant, the only security officer on Aster 7, stood in the town square as soldiers surrounded her. She had no weapon. She had no backup. She had nothing but her voice. Please, she said, raising her hands, take me, leave the children alone. The soldiers laughed. One of them struck across the face, knocking her to the ground. She did not fight back. She simply looked up at them with steady eyes. You will regret this, she said quietly. The soldiers laughed again. Searched frantically for her brother. The smoke was thick. The noise was overwhelming. She pushed through crowds of running people, shouting his name. Minyu, Minyu. She found him near the school building. 2 soldiers were dragging him toward a transport ship. He was struggling, kicking, crying for help. Ran toward them without thinking. A soldier caught her easily, lifting her off the ground with one arm. She was strong by human standards, but these creatures were built for war. She could not break free. 2 more for the cages, the soldier said. And Minyu were thrown into a dark metal container with dozens of other colonists. Children sobbed. Elderly people prayed. The air smelled like fear and smoke. Across the colony, similar scenes played out. They were efficient. They had done this many times before. Within 2 hours, they had collected 4,000 prisoners, mostly children and elderly who could not run fast enough. Sergeant was among the last to be captured. Before the soldiers took her, she managed to reach a communication terminal. Her fingers moved quickly, sending a single message into space. The message was short. "They took our children, they are laughing, they think we will not come." Then a soldier smashed the terminal and dragged her away. In the Galactic Assembly Chamber, Ambassador was discussing refugee policies when his assistant rushed in. The young woman was pale. Her hands were shaking. She handed a data tablet without speaking. Read the message. He read it again. He read it a third time. The chamber fell silent. 800 species watched the human ambassador, expecting tears, expecting a breakdown, expecting the soft, gentle reaction they had come to know. Looked up. His eyes had changed. Something ancient and cold had awakened behind them, something that remembered what humans truly were. "Session adjourned," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "Humanity has business to attend to." He walked out of the chamber without another word. The ambassador turned to a colleague. "What is happening? I have never seen ambassador like this." The colleague, an older species who had studied humans for centuries, made a sound of deep concern. "I have only read about this in old records. The humans call it the quiet before the storm." "What does that mean?" "It means the galaxy has made a terrible mistake." On Earth, the message arrived at midnight. It passed through normal channels first: military offices, government buildings, emergency centers. Within minutes, it reached the Planetary Defense Council. The council chamber had been empty for 80 years. Dust covered the chairs. The screens were dark. No one had needed this room in 3 generations. Now lights flickered on. Old systems awakened. Chairs filled with people who moved with purpose they had not shown in decades. Admiral entered the chamber. She was 67 years old, retired for 20 years. Her white hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform still fit perfectly. She had kept it ready, just in case. "Report," she said, taking her seat at the head of the table. 4,000 colonists taken from Aster 7, an officer replied. "Mostly children. The hegemony has claimed responsibility. They are demanding Earth's complete surrender." Was silent for a moment. Then she pressed a button on her console. Across human space, a message went out. A simple message, using codes that had not been activated in a century. The message said, "They took our children." Nothing more was needed. In quiet homes and peaceful communities, humans stopped what they were doing. Teachers left their classrooms. Doctors left their hospitals. Artists put down their brushes. Scientists closed their books. They went to closets and basements. They opened locked boxes that had gathered dust for years. Inside were things they had hoped never to use again. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Humans were kind by choice, and they had just chosen differently. The awakening spread across human space like fire through dry grass. On Earth, Admiral walked into the command center of the First Fleet. The room had been silent for 80 years. Dust covered the consoles. The screens were black. The air smelled stale and forgotten. She placed her hand on the main terminal. The system scanned her DNA, her fingerprints, her heartbeat. Old codes, buried deep in military databases, activated for the first time in generations. Lights flickered on. Screens awakened. Across the planet, in hidden hangars and secret storage facilities, ancient machines began to wake. Ships that had not moved in a century powered up their engines. Weapons that had been locked away were brought into the light. The First Fleet, humanity's forgotten fist, remembered its purpose. All hands spoke into the communication system. Her voice was carried across Earth and beyond. "Report to your stations. We have work to do." Across human space, veterans answered the call. Doctor had spent 30 years as a. She studied alien flowers and wrote poetry about the beauty of the universe. Her students knew her as a gentle soul who cried when she found injured animals. They did not know about the locked cabinet in her basement. When the message arrived, walked downstairs slowly. She had not opened that cabinet in decades. Part of her had hoped she never would. The lock was old, but it still worked. Inside, carefully preserved, was her combat suit from the border wars. The armor was from battles fought before most assembly species were born. Dark stains still marked the chest plate. She put it on. It still fit. In a university lecture hall, instructor was teaching alien exchange students about human poetry. He was reading a love poem when his personal device buzzed. He stopped mid-sentence. His students watched in confusion as their gentle, elderly teacher suddenly stood. His soft eyes became hard. His relaxed posture became alert. "Class dismissed," he said. "But sir, the lecture." "I said dismissed." He left the room quickly. His students did not understand what they had just witnessed. They did not know that their poetry teacher had once been called the Ghost of Tao. They did not know about the 200 enemy soldiers he had killed alone during the colony defense of 2541. They did not know that the reason he taught poetry was to remind himself that beauty still existed. Captain received her orders aboard the Healing Dawn. The message was simple: return to Earth, prepare for combat operations. She read the message 3 times. Then she looked at her crew, her family of healers who had spent their lives saving others. "You all received the same message," she said quietly. "I will not force anyone to participate. This is a choice." Lieutenant stepped forward. "Captain, I have not fired a weapon in 12 years. I became a healer because I was tired of violence." He paused. "But they took our children." The rest of the crew nodded. One by one they made their choice. The Healing Dawn changed course toward Earth. In orbit around the planet, ships began to gather. They came from everywhere, from storage facilities hidden on moons, from museums where they had been displayed as relics of a violent past, from private collections maintained by families who remembered. 3,000 warships, each one fully crewed by humans who had spent their lives choosing peace but had never forgotten how to make war. The ambassador, visiting Earth on a diplomatic mission, watched in horror as the sky filled with vessels of destruction. He had never seen human warships before. No one had, in living memory. "What is happening?" he asked his human guide, a cheerful woman who usually brought pastries to every meeting. The woman's face was different now, harder, older somehow. "You have only known us in peacetime," she said. "You have only seen what we choose to show you. For 300 years, we chose kindness because kindness was possible. And now it is not." In the great hangar of the First Fleet, soldiers assembled for inspection. Admiral walked among them, looking at faces young and old. Some had never seen combat. Others remembered wars that history had forgotten. Ambassador stood at her side. The gentle diplomat had changed. He wore combat armor that seemed strange on his thin frame, but his eyes told a different story. Those eyes had seen death before. "They expect us to negotiate," said. "They expect tears and pleas." "What will we give them?" asked. "A lesson." On the warlord celebrated his victory. His advisors praised his genius. The human prisoners were secured in holding cells, waiting to be used as bargaining tools. "The humans will surrender within days," predicted. "They are too soft to fight, too broken by peace. They will weep and beg, and we will take their entire civilization." His communication officer suddenly stood up, face pale. "Warlord, we are receiving reports from our border stations." "What reports?" "Ships, human ships, thousands of them, moving toward our space." Laughed. "Impossible. The humans have no military." "Sir, the reports are confirmed. 3,000 warships. They will arrive in 60 hours. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Warlord felt something he did not recognize. It was fear. The galaxy had forgotten what truly were. They were about to remember. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the lake, a storm breaking over the ocean. 3,000 warships, ancient vessels pulled from storage and museums, ships that had been built in darker times designed for a single purpose: destruction. Warlord stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His intelligence had told him the humans had no military. His experts had assured him they were broken by peace. His entire strategy was based on the assumption that had forgotten their nature. He was wrong. Admiral's transmission was broadcast on every frequency. Her voice was calm, cold, without a trace of the warmth other species associated with humans. You took 4,000 of our children. You have 6 hours to return them unharmed. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a countdown. Advisors scrambled around him, shouting suggestions and updates. The warlord silenced them with a raised claw. They are bluffing, he declared. Humans do not fight. Everyone knows this. They will talk and cry and eventually accept our terms. He ordered his fleet to attack. They had 5,000 warships. They outnumbered the humans. Their soldiers were bred for combat across 10,000 years. Their tactics had crushed 42 species. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Human ships moved with coordination that should have been impossible. 3,000 vessels acting as one organism, each pilot anticipating the movements of every ally and enemy. They did not hesitate. They did not retreat. They did not stop. Weapons struck human ships directly. Explosions tore through metal and fire. Any other species would have fallen back, overwhelmed by the damage. The humans kept coming. Their bodies were designed to survive crushing gravity, violent weather, and predator attacks. Pain that would cripple other species barely slowed them down. Injuries that would kill 3 times over became minor inconveniences. They fought through the fire. They fought through the explosions. They fought through everything that could throw at them. And they did not stop. Captain commanded a squadron of converted medical ships. Her crew of healers had become warriors overnight. Lieutenant operated weapons he had not touched in 12 years. Enemy cruiser approaching from starboard, reported. Destroy it, said without emotion. The cruiser exploded, fired again and again and again. I forgot how easy this was, he muttered. Do not get used to it, replied. After today we go back to healing. After today. The formation collapsed in minutes. Their disciplined fleet broke into chaos as human ships cut through them like fire through paper. Escape pods launched in all directions as warships were torn apart. Ambassador led the boarding party to his flagship. The gentle diplomat who had never raised his voice in a century of politics now moved through the corridors like a ghost of death. Soldiers tried to stop him. They failed. Did not use weapons. He did not need them. His body was a weapon. Every human body was a weapon, shaped by millions of years on a world that tried to kill them every day. He fought through elite guard with his bare hands. They were strong, they were trained for combat, they were bred for war. It did not matter. Broke through the final door and found Warlord cowering behind his command throne. The mighty conqueror, terror of 42 species, pressed himself against the wall like a frightened child. Please, whispered. Mercy, I surrender, take what you want. Stood over him, breathing slowly. His hands were still, his face showed nothing. You thought our kindness meant we could not be cruel, he said quietly. You misunderstood completely. We are kind because we know exactly what cruelty looks like. We lived it. We survived it. We chose to be better. He paused. But we never forgot how to be worse. Below in the holding cells, rescue teams were already freeing the prisoners. Held Minu tightly, tears streaming down both their faces. They were alive. They were safe. The nightmare was ending. Sargent was found in a deeper cell, wounded but alive. They had hurt her during interrogation. They had tried to break her spirit. They had failed. When the rescue team cut through her cell door, she looked up at them with eyes full of exhausted relief. "I told them you would come," she whispered. "They laughed at me. They said humans were weak. They said we would surrender." The team leader knelt beside her. "We would never abandon you. We would never abandon any of our people." "I know," closed her eyes. "I always knew." Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Children reunited with parents. Families made whole again. 4,000 lives saved by 3,000 ships that had crossed half the galaxy in 60 hours. Warlord was taken prisoner. His empire surrendered unconditionally. 10,000 years of conquest ended in 11 minutes. Admiral surveyed the battlefield from her command ship. Wreckage floated everywhere, and human debris mixed together in the silence of space. "Casualties?" she asked. "Minimal, Admiral. 47 wounded, 6 critical, no deaths." Nodded. "Prepare for return voyage. Our work here is done." The human fleet gathered its people and began the journey home. Behind them, there was silent. The once proud empire had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Do not touch human children. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Do not assume peace means forgetting. The had remembered who they were. And the galaxy would never forget. The galaxy changed after that day. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but deeply in ways that would last for thousands of years. The hegemony surrendered completely. Their fleet was dismantled. Their warlord stood trial for crimes against sentient beings. For the first time in 10,000 years, the empire that had terrorized dozens of species answered to others. Spent the rest of his life in a prison cell, wondering how he had been so wrong about everything. But the true change was not political. It was something deeper. Something in the way every species in the galaxy looked at humanity. The Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session 3 days after the battle. 800 species gathered to discuss what they had witnessed. Recordings of the conflict played on massive screens. Delegates watched in silence. They saw the gentle healers of the healing dawn become soldiers overnight. They saw the peaceful diplomat fight through elite guards with his bare hands. They saw 3,000 ships move as one mind, unstoppable and precise. They saw kindness and violence exist in the same beings. The elder, the one who had first called humans the weeping warriors, stood before the assembly. His thin voice carried across the vast chamber. "For 300 years we knew the humans as friends. They healed our sick. They rebuilt our cities. They adopted our orphaned children as their own. We loved them for their gentle hearts." He paused, his ancient eyes reflecting the screens. "We were not wrong to love them, but we were incomplete in our understanding. The humans are not gentle because they are weak. They are gentle because they are strong enough to choose gentleness. They cry at sad stories because they feel deeply. They help strangers because they care deeply. They do not harm because they choose not to harm." The chamber was absolutely silent. Today we learned what happens when that choice changes. Today we learned that do not create soft beings. They create beings who survived everything the universe could throw at them. Beings who chose kindness not from weakness, but from strength. He turned to look at the human delegation. Never mistake their mercy for inability. It is a gift they choose to give, and gifts can be taken back. Ambassador sat in his usual seat. He wore his diplomatic robes again, the combat armor stored away. His face had returned to its gentle expression. His voice had returned to its soft tones. But the other delegates noticed something different. When spoke, even the most aggressive species listened. When he made a request, it was granted. When he suggested a policy, it was adopted. Was it fear? Perhaps. But it was also respect. The kind of respect earned by those who prove they can destroy but choose to build instead. On Earth, the First Fleet returned to storage. The ancient warships were powered down and placed back in their hangars and museums. Veterans returned to their normal lives. Teachers went back to classrooms. Doctors went back to hospitals. Artists picked up their brushes again. Admiral stood before the assembled crews one final time. "You answered the call," she said. "You remembered who we are. I pray you never have to remember again." She looked at the thousands of faces before her, young and old, all carrying the weight of what they had done. "Until next time, and may there never be one." The crews dispersed. The ships fell silent. The galaxy's most powerful military force disappeared back into peaceful lives, waiting and hoping it would never be needed again. Captain returned the healing dawn to its original purpose. The weapons were removed. The armor plating was replaced with medical equipment. Her crew of warriors became healers once more. She kept one combat suit in her quarters, just in case. Lieutenant went back to carrying boxes and looking tall. His weapon was locked away in storage. He started counting again, days since he had fired a weapon. Day 1. On Aster 7, the colonists rebuilt. The Harvest Festival was held again the following year, and Minu danced and laughed, but they carried new knowledge in their hearts. They knew what their people could become when pushed. They hoped they would never see it again. Across the galaxy, a legend spread. Parents told their children, teachers taught their students, leaders warned their rivals. The story was always the same. Long ago, they made a mistake. They saw the kindest species in the galaxy and thought them weak. They attacked a human colony and took their children. What happened next? The humans came, not with words, not with tears, with fire and fury and ancient ships that had not flown in a century. They destroyed the fleet in 11 minutes. They rescued every prisoner. They ended an empire that had lasted 10,000 years. But I thought humans were gentle. They choose to be. Every day they wake up and choose kindness. They choose to heal instead of harm. They choose to build instead of destroy. They are the gentlest beings you will ever meet. A pause. But never, ever give them a reason to choose differently. In the official records of the Galactic Assembly, a new entry was added to Earth's file. It remained there for thousands of years, unchanged and unchangeable. Planet classification, Category 12. Inhabitants, highly social, emotionally complex, physically resilient beyond measurement. Recommended diplomatic approach, friendship and cooperation. Warning, do not harm their children. And at the bottom, added by an anonymous clerk who understood humans better than most. Note, they are kind because they choose to be. They are peaceful because they choose to be. They are gentle because they choose to be. Remember always, choice is the most human thing of all. The galaxy remembered. It never forgot. And humans went back to being the kindest species in the universe, carrying their ancient strength quietly, hoping they would never need it again. But ready, always ready if they did.